So you know what? It turns out we've all been lied to. We've all heard the news that China is on the verge of an economical collapse. With an aging population and a massive demographic shift, China at this point is guaranteed to lose its title as the world's factory to countries like India, Vietnam, and the Philippines. But what if I told you this was a necessary loss for China, and in fact, it's part of China's grand plan? You see, China has already shifted its focus away from manufacturing, and their solution to address the demographic challenges is nothing short of sheer genius. And if they are successful, it will propel them to become the world's largest economy, and by a long way. Now, before we jump into the fix and how China will dominate the economical landscape of the future, it's important to understand how China got on this path in the first place. We've all picked up random household items in the past and discovered that in fact it's actually made in China, like this cheap microphone. Now, China gained this title of the world's factory through a combination of a strong business ecosystem, a non-compliance with regulations, low taxes and duties, and overall a competitive currency practice. However, China's demographic is now very different to what it once was 20 or so years ago. In fact, China is now more similar to a modern westernized economy than it ever has been, which is leading to a serious problem. The birth rate in China is declining, and it's a huge population crisis within the nation. For example, Japan has long been considered to be a country with an extremely low birth rate, which is currently 1.37 babies per individual woman. But China's is way worse, with 1.18 babies per woman. And when you consider that it takes two to do the hokey pokey,
not my mom!
You can start to see that this 1.18 is a serious problem. For a first world country to sustain itself and grow, it needs to have an average birth rate of 2.1 babies per individual woman. And if a country fails to meet this quota of rugrats, it will face a serious problem down the line in the future. The population demographic will eventually be skewed towards an older generation of people. It will mean the country is out of balance. And it's even worse news for what's known as the dependency population, which is anybody below 14 and over 65. These two age groups rely on the working age population to support their vulnerability and to generate cash flow, not only to support them, but the nation itself. When this dependency population outweighs the working age population, it's of course going to lead to a serious problem and even an economical collapse, or worse yet, a all-out war. The simple solution would be to hand out lube and give everybody free access to Netflix.
Tell me more about this of yours.
But that's quite a hard law to pass in any political society. Some of the earlier strategies for combating this problem were to stimulate and try and bring in more immigration. But this fell straight on its backside. Further research proved that China's migration is actually negative, which means people are leaving more than they are coming, leading to a faster decline in that working population. It seems that China is ready to hit full steam ahead with their recently announced 5-year plan, which aims to make China a leader in industrial automation. The idea is simple, if not utter brilliance. By focusing on automation, China can still scale upwards its actual workforce. Provided they have the resources and the money to do this, they can simply produce more robots that will replace the dirty work that a person would have had to uptake in a factory. And it doesn't just apply to manual labor either, because with recent advances in things like ChatGPT and various other AI software, the actual time needed to run admin and operations is simply diminishing, meaning few people are needed to actually run the infrastructure itself. So in theory, China can become an industrial leader in industrial automation while utilizing technology from other countries to streamline their administrative automation. I hope that makes sense on video. And China has already begun this transition to automation on multiple fronts. One of the most recent and significant ones is a massive push to self-driving cars in Beijing. The Chinese government, alongside a company called WeRide, has used Guangzhou City as a ground for testing their new driverless technology. A couple of years ago, another show of this was automation within an Alibaba warehouse. This factory would ultimately need hundreds hundreds and hundreds of people to do the heavy lifting. But with these Roombas on steroids, they can lift 500 kilograms and limit order mistakes from human error. The impressive thing with this is these Roomba robots were invented nearly 5 years ago, meaning the shift to automation is well underway. And from a corporate standpoint, I'm sure the robot salary will be much lower than the average employee, meaning there'll be more wealth in the economy to distribute out to its individuals. And another policy the West sees as a con could actually be a pro for China: their excessive mass surveillance. We all know China does mass surveillance on its populations, but by gathering vast amounts of data on their populations with minimum protections, it gives China a huge edge on how to plan the future and shift to automation. And according to 𝐓𝐻𝐿𝐼, it's estimated that 26% of China's total GDP in 2030 will come from AI and automation. That's a whopping $7 trillion. I think overall China's goal is to have more wealth in its economy with less people, meaning eventually it will phase out poverty and have little risk of famine in the future. I think they're aiming to sort of take the Swiss and Norwegian business model and put it on a communist track. But that all said, it wouldn't be fair if I give you the negatives, because it won't be smooth sailing to shift into automation for China. Many are simply against the idea of a fully automized industry because it will simply devalue many of the skilled workforce, meaning they will have to move lower down the skilled ladder and work in areas they are overqualified for. This will push the even lower skilled workers into a place where they will struggle to get any employment whatsoever. And this will lead to higher rates of unemployment and various other economical problems. It will take a few generations to counterbalance this new system and this new type of economy. Now, China for sure is not out the fight yet to gain the crown of the world's biggest economy, as many mainstream media news outlets will have you believe. And some would argue that it has a better chance than ever, especially because the US is making a huge mistake, one of the biggest in history. And if history is anything to go off, the US is heading into a much bigger problem than China, which I explain in this video here. Thanks for watching.